Welcome to State of the Matrix, where we deconstruct the fabric of reality and consciousness. Here, we unravel illusions and dive deep into the hidden layers of existence. Join us on this continuous journey of awakening. In today's video, we're going to dive into the existential philosophy of Nobel Prize-winning author Albert Camus, particularly exploring his 1947 novel, The Plague, and how it's more relevant than ever, and can teach us to confront the metaphorical plagues that affect us all, socially, politically, environmentally, and even existentially. Yet it has to be treated with caution as it naively ignores the problem of imposters, propaganda, and social engineering in complex technological societies, so considerable augmentation of his views needs to take place. Instead, Camus focuses on character and how best to deal with existential issues that we all face. Let's explore how Camus' ideas can help us wake up to the reality around us and inspire us to take action, engaging positively and with a keen sense of awareness and purpose. This is the first video on this channel, and I'm scheduling more on a regular basis, so if you're into exploring deeper realities like this on a wide range of topics, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Imagine living in a quiet, routine-driven town where everyone is comfortably complacent with their lives and habits. Then, gradually it becomes apparent that something is wrong. Yet in the early stages, most people fail to recognize it, and even those who do aren't quite sure of themselves and take some time to take action. Moreover, it's only once things really start to escalate that the majority become alarmed. This is an interesting point. Many of us live in complacency, shielded by routines and systems that push these plagues out of sight and prevent us from acknowledging what is around us and gathering pace. Governments and media often distract us, normalizing issues or pushing their own agendas, creating the illusion of safety and effective management. But as Camus shows us, these problems don't just go away on their own, they fester until they become too big to ignore. This complacency is part of what makes The Plague such a striking commentary on the human condition. Complacency can be hard to shake, and the tipping point, or the point of no return, can often be when it affects us directly and passes the threshold of our own entrances into our houses, as it were. Prior to this, when it merely affects others, we often have a tendency to ignore it, dismiss it, and/or deny it. Complacency in this regard is a curse that denies the senses and leaves action until it is often too late. A lack of pattern recognition and extrapolation, mixed with a lack of care and dismissiveness for the lives and outcomes of other people, allows these issues to fester until they finally come around to affecting the complacent individual and perhaps everyone. Being mindful of the dangers of complacency is therefore of utmost importance, as is taking action early before it's too late. Part of this is respecting the spirit of humanity and caring about the plight of others and the general systemic health of society or a lack thereof. Camus also introduces us to characters who embody the opposite of complacency, dismissiveness, and denial. Those who come to acknowledge the reality of the plague and choose to act. Dr. Ryu, the protagonist, represents resilience and moral responsibility. He recognizes early that something isn't quite right, is present when the first person dies, and comes to know the fight against the plague is likely futile for many, yet he dedicates himself to saving as many lives as possible. This is where one of Camus's major themes comes into play: the personal struggle for meaning and solidarity with the spirit of humanity in shared experiences. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, the novel shows that the human capacity for connection and mutual support is key, inspired by dedicated personal agency. The Plague is, in many ways, a call to collective action and personal leadership. It tells us that the fight against the absurd and chaotic nature of the world is best fought together with individual responsibility and moral and existential leadership being paramount. While it's not explicitly stated in The Plague, Camus' broader philosophy touches on how society can lull us into a false sense of normalcy. Corporations market to us. Governments push propaganda, all of which condition us and limit our sense of self, purpose, agency, and what we think about and do. All the while, the real plagues are swept under the rug. Issues that should be dealt with are sometimes never addressed, spoken about, and aren't allowed to become election issues until there are authentic individuals who rise to the occasion, much like Dr. Ryu. We're conditioned to believe that the social contract is being fulfilled by the institutions and their alliance with corporations, and that what they do is for the greater good. Yet for extended periods they may act against our interests and ignore pressing issues that affect many people, even all of us, gaslighting us if we deviate from their narratives and call them out on it until a systemic tipping point is reached, spurred on by strong-willed leaders and followers. This is one of the reasons why Camus's message is so urgent today. By keeping people passive, distracted, complacent, even exhausted, also immoral and degenerate, these forces limit our potential for real engagement. It should be noted that exhausting the population through the necessity to tread water incessantly to stay afloat, increasing fear, stress, and anxiety, These all contribute to controllability for many people as they have little left to engage effectively, or their fear and anxiety undermines executive functioning, thus their capacity. And this brings us to the heart of the problem. By suppressing existential awareness, by avoiding the addressing of these larger issues, we miss out on the opportunity for true personal and collective transformation. It also makes us more susceptible to government and media manipulation, because being compliant is the easy way out, provides us with a cheap sense of righteousness, and is low effort. If we are complacent and susceptible to fear when an orchestrated event hits with ulterior motives, we have little in our favor to resist being swept up in it, at least until complacency has been vanquished. Interestingly, Camus makes use of the Greek myth of Sisyphus in his essay The Myth of Sisyphus, a man condemned to push a boulder up a hill repeatedly, only for it to roll back down each time it reaches the top. Camus uses this as a metaphor for the human condition, suggesting that, despite the absurdity of life, the act of struggle and striving can bring meaning and fulfillment. In this essay, he wrote, and I quote, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy." This can be seen as an antidote to complacency and nihilism. Camus views the universe as absurd because, at a material level, it operates without concern for human existence. We live in a vast, indifferent cosmos, where astronomical objects and earthly forces such as asteroids and earthquakes could destroy us by sheer chance, with a mathematical probability inherent to each possible event. The material universe doesn't care whether we live or die, yet we should still continually seek meaning and purpose. Otherwise, we'll be gripped by a downward spiral. This clash between our desire and need for meaning to live a healthy and effective life and the universe's indifference is the essence of Camus' absurdism. Camus argues that, rather than succumbing to nihilism, we must create our own meaning to live well, embracing the struggle and finding joy in life despite its absurdity. We may not be able to defeat the issues that plague us entirely, but in the act of trying, we find meaning and we may inspire others to do the same. Certainly, if no one puts effort into addressing the many problems we face, then nothing will have a chance. Leadership inspires followers who must express some level of leadership as well, and a truly inspired individual will struggle for what is right, regardless of the outcomes for themselves and whether they will gain the benefit or not, which is inherently courageous. Social change can potentially take many generations, even hundreds of years, but each leader and follower pitches in and moves things forward. If you're finding this content interesting, like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. The takeaway from the plague, then, is not just about fighting a literal epidemic. It's about embracing the need for collective action through individual agency, inspiration, and personal leadership, confronting the challenges that we might otherwise ignore, and finding strength and solidarity with like-minded individuals, whether they are directly by our side or more distributed in society. It's about rejecting complacency, fear, hopelessness, selfishness, and nihilism, and recognizing our power to create meaning through engagement. If we believe in higher levels of consciousness and God, finding meaning and purpose is presumably much easier, but it can still be challenging at times, and Camus provides the impetus to engage in practical ways that can help anyone for the duration. The trick is to remain mindful of whether we are chasing phantoms, socially engineered crises, or whether we're addressing real issues that are proportionately prioritized with a measured and reasonable response. There are many issues that are forced onto our attention while suppressing others, and on close examination, they pale in comparison to the starker and pertinent issues that are ignored or swept under the carpet. Having a keen and trained perception for discerning the difference is key in a complex world full of conditioning propaganda and divisive agendas with the greed for money and control as the prime movers. Never underestimate the power of propaganda to persuade the naive that supporting the spoon-fed agenda is righteous, when in fact it goes against not just truth, but the spirit of humanity, thus their very own interests. Imposters lead do-gooders and the naive, which can only be prevented with the sometimes elusive quality of awareness. It's disturbing when people who, going against their own interests, support what is essentially wrong without an awareness of the inversion, but we can expect this to continue. The perception of truth is malleable, and people don't like to admit to themselves that they've been supporting the wrong thing. But the strongest-willed among us become indignant about it, never forgiving and never forgetting those who led them astray. The trick is to be inspired by it, still being able to live calmly and engage effectively. Our job is to be discerning and sensitive to propaganda, conditioning and stay engaged, calm and responsive, such that we have more of a chance to really be like Dr. Rieu and Sisyphus, living a courageous and honourable life that supports the human spirit and the social contract that governments, institutions and corporations should be demonstrating their support of and alignment with every day with verifiable proof and the same kind of inspired, authentic agency and leadership. These are topics that we will be covering more on this channel. Thank you for watching, and remember to stay aware, stay engaged, and find your meaning in the struggle. If you found this exploration interesting, Hit like and subscribe, comment, and join us next time as we continue to explore consciousness and the nature of reality.